Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
From Optastats on Twitter/X, the Timberwolves last night were A, down by 20 points entering the fourth quarter, B, on the road, and C, facing a team with an 800 win percentage or better. No other team in NBA history has been in that situation with those three factors and come back to win the game in the history of the NBA. That's what we witnessed last night in Oklahoma City, boys.
I was this close in the third quarter to opting out of that game. And then I'm like, whatever.
Judd on Twitter.
It's a Monday night. What else am I going to like turn and watch? And so I said, no, I'll stick with it. And the comeback began. And at first I was frustrated because I'm like, where was this before? Right? Like you felt, but the more it carried on, the more impressive it became. And if you aren't high on or excited about the future and some of those young players off of that game, I don't know what would get you excited, because that to me is the thing that stood out, was the resilience of this team.
Yeah, they were it. I was kind of like you. I had muted it and it was on in the background. I was kind of scrolling through emails and basically just getting ready for bed. And all of a sudden, okay, let's put the volume. Oh, it's 9 now. Let's put the volume back on. Let's see what's happening. Excited. And then you're like, at what point is Finch going to be forced to like put Anthony Edwards back in the game? And I have a pie chart of praise for you guys, by the way, where we can kind of go through the different key factors for that win. And in fact, let's just do it right now. Let's start with this pie chart of praise.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
I know Judd also has the box score from the only other time in franchise history the Wolves completed a 25-point comeback. March 1st, 1996. So we will get to that amazing look back in history. 6 slices of pie for you guys. This pie chart of praise for an historical comeback.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
5% to the basketball gods for putting a lid on Oklahoma City's rim on offense. So heading into the fourth quarter, Oklahoma City was shooting in the first 7 quarters of this back-to-back against each other. So the full game 2 nights ago, and then the first 3 quarters last night. Oklahoma City was shooting 50% on threes. And it's like, all right, that's a great team, and they've got an offense, and they got some dudes, but like 50%? Insane. And they finally start missing some threes in the fourth quarter overtime. In fact, they went 2 for 20 on threes and a lot of wide open misses. Because what the Wolves were doing is they would trap Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, much like Oklahoma City is doing to Anthony Edwards. But Oklahoma City is really good at get the ball out, swing it to a corner, and the Wolves were just kind of like, oh, let's get the ball out of his hands and hope that they clank a 3, and they did for the entire quarter. Also, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander only 3 free throw attempts in the fourth quarter and overtime. So the basketball gods, who ordinarily grant a high 3-point percentage make rate, when these two teams play, and any free throw that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander asks for, basically he is granted a trip to the line as a free throw merchant. And the basketball god said, nope, not in this fourth quarter overtime.
But this is where trapping him makes sense, right? Because if I trap him, his ability to draw a foul becomes more difficult because he's going to have to distribute the ball. Like I'm going to foul him if I allow him to get a shot off or drive, which he then gets. So like to me, the trapping thing made perfect sense. And look, if you get beat by the rest of that team, and it's a good team, but if they beat you, hey, congratulations, right? But to allow SGA to beat you makes no sense. And to allow him to have the freedom to reign makes no sense. And I will say this, when Jaylen Clark is on him, it is a treat to watch. Yes. It is a treat to watch because you know what he ain't doing? He ain't going away, and he's not getting discouraged.
and we'll get to the end of regulation sequence here later in the pie chart. So put a pin in that. We will circle back. Let's give 10% to
Rock knows how you feel about pie.
Chris Finch. So what are the main criticisms about Chris Finch among fans and media this season? I think there's three main categories. Late game lineup combinations, where why is Conley out there, right? We've had a lot of complaints about his late game lineup combinations. Mm-hmm. Not playing young guys enough this season in general has been a major complaint, early in the season especially. And then just general clutch time catastrophe, where the offense is chaotic. There's clearly dissonance between whatever Finch wants or thinks he's drawing up or instructing versus what's actually happening, because the Wolves are one of the worst clutch time teams in the league. Well, last night, Finch and the Wolves nailed all three of these aspects. He sticks with a very different lineup in the last 5 minutes. Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, Rob Dillingham, Terrance Shannon Jr., and Nickeil Alexander-Walker closed out that regulation. Now, they brought Ant back in the last minute and a half of overtime to help close out the game. But he sticks with a very different lineup. He plays the young guys crazy minutes because you have to. You're just down all these key rotation players. And they were incredible once the game got back to clutch time, which is, 5-point game with under 5 minutes to go. So they had a bunch of work to do just to get it to clutch time, but they wind up with a clutch time win. So Chris Finch, it took some cojones to stick with that lineup, trust it, empower them, and now because they finished it off, think about the confidence everyone involved has going forward.
And he said in his post game that he thought that Ant was done because he had a calf. So he said, I actually thought that he couldn't come back, and that they told me then in OT, no, he can. But the reality was, he was. In many ways, you're right. He was forced into this. And I guess my question off of that is, what did you learn? Because to me, what I learned is that this group has a gear that we previously have not witnessed, that we did last night. That was really damn impressive. And it's all about empowering guys, including Jaden. You empower them more and more, and their confidence grows, and you get more back. So I thought that was an incredibly valuable tool to see that. And then the fact that they pulled off the comeback, which I certainly didn't expect, was even more impressive.
Yeah. Okay, continuing with the pie chart of praise.
Knows how you feel about pie.
We're going to give 15% to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who he's had so many of these games where he's out there. He's like a team high in plus minus. He's a Swiss Army knife that you're being asked to be the point guard / initiator for certain chunks of the game. You're being asked to handle a difficult defensive assignment for a chunk. Oh, we need you to knock down some big 3-point shots. Now we need you to get to the mid-range. He had that fadeaway from the free throw line late in the fourth quarter to help. I think he tied the game with that one. He just dribbles in. But yeah, team high plus 23 for the ultimate Swiss Army knife ninja in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Super valuable player against a team like that too, where you're just like, you got to be very switchy. And then I'm also going to give 15%, an equal slice,
knows how you feel about pie.
to Anthony Edwards, he was banged up with the calf. He had a really rough, inefficient night offensively, but he rebounded. He defended when he needed to with the huge block to essentially clinch the game with 5 or 10 seconds left.
Yep.
And he made a bunch of plays for others with the assists. And the fact that, and now Finch, seems like Finch did not characterize it as a benching in the last 5 minutes of regulation. He's saying, I thought he was unavailable.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, Ant was up waving a towel. So the fact that he was available but was not sulking, was not pouting, he was highly engaged with the Luka Garzas and the Joe Ingles as a towel waver, and got to sort of watch and learn, hey, it can't just be hero ball, dude. You can't just be jacking up hero threes. Mm-hmm. Somebody on Twitter, on Wolves Twitter, characterized it really well, that he loves to hunt for the home run, put you away, 400-foot bomb, right? But sometimes you just need a single or a double, man. Like you literally just need to get into the paint, dish it to somebody, or someone hits a mid-range shot. But the fact that he handled whatever the reason was why he wasn't playing at the end, he handled that flawlessly, and then came in for the game-clinching block on SGA, much like that Pacers game last year where he rose up, 15 feet off the ground for the game-winning block.
Yeah, the game clinching block was absolutely a spectacular play because live I thought, oh, that's a foul. Like there's no question it's a foul. And then when you saw it slow down, it was a huge, gorgeous defensive play. Yeah. So, yeah, but again, you know what? Ant is very good when Ant is part of a team, and that felt like a team last night. The 2024-25 Wolves have not always felt like a team.
Yeah. And you could tell even when Ant came back into the game, it felt like there were 2 or 3 opportunities in the last minute and a half where usually he would rise up and try and hit. You're up by 1 point with the ball, and he would kind of wave somebody off or come off a screen and just take a contested 3 because he wants to dagger the Thunder and make it a 4-point game.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, it was like he played into the team basketball and the ball movement, and he would look to pass the ball to somebody and not take the hero ball shot. I think a big lesson learned is less hero ball in the fourth quarter and more team basketball, athleticism, moving the ball around. Hopefully he learned a lesson watching that play out and the energy and everything, the hunting for free throws. Like the Wolves aren't foul merchants or free throw merchants in the way that SGA is. They were just aggressive in getting into places where they would take a legitimate foul and get to the free throw line.
And they made them too.
Yep. And you could use a little more of that and a little less hero ball 3-point attempts from Ant in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2 more slices. The next one.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
We're giving 25% to the 3 rookies. Terrance Shannon Jr., Rob Dillingham, and Jaylen Clark. So Terrance Shannon and Dillingham, just crazy energy and offensive force, and it is a little reckless sometimes, and they'll throw up a ridiculous layup or something or turn the ball over, but they're just operating at an aggressiveness and a speed that makes other teams a little less comfortable, I feel like. And in the playoffs, most teams are operating at that level more often. But it's noticeable in the regular season. And by the way, Terrance Shannon Jr., 10 rebounds. That right there, I mean, he scored a bunch of points. He was 7 of 10 from the field, and you see his offensive ability. But the 10 rebounds shows you this is how active that dude is. And this is him trying to demand 15 to 20 minutes a night of playing time. Not just chucking shots, but doing all the other things. And then Jaylen Clark, to put the clamps on SGA at the end of regulation, like they literally had him guarding SGA essentially one-on-one with a little bit of help coming in there. And SGA misses the shot, and they go to overtime. So credit to all 3 of those rookies.
How much does Jaylen Clark play in playoff games? Because, I mean, he is built, what he does, if it translates to playoffs, is built for that. Like that amount of clamps, defense. And the incredible thing is, unlike Shannon, who Terrance Shannon Jr. plays incredibly fast. I can't decide if he is out of control as he looks or just because he plays like that. It appears to be the case because there are plays that dude makes that are like, oh, okay, you've got experience here. You're not a kid. Dillingham is hit and miss, but on Jaylen Clark, that play, like what he does is the definition of what you can use a lot in the playoffs, which is he doesn't get flustered. He doesn't get frustrated. He doesn't play dumb. And he absolutely, you can see the gears grinding, takes really good players and frustrates them.
Also, he's the type of guy where sometimes we need you for 10 minutes tonight. Sometimes we need you for 30 minutes tonight.
Yep.
And I think he's just ready.
Yep.
He's just, all right, cool, whatever. Just point me in the right direction, and I will go clamp somebody. He seems like a very egoless player. And maybe some of it's his personality, some of it's the adversity with the Achilles injury. But, yeah, just what a gem that they have found in Jaylen Clark. And then the number one slice of pie
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
goes to Diet Kawhi Leonard, as I have coined him for 2 or 3 years here on this show. Jaden McDaniels with one of the most productive games of his career, driving the bus throughout most of the fourth quarter too, just getting to the free throw line, getting to his spots, getting to the rim. 27 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. He had those 27 points on only 16 shot attempts because he got to the free throw, 0 3-point attempts. That right there is the telling stat to me, because you've seen some games. There was a couple playoff games where he's hot from 3. He's standing out there in the corner and he knocks down 3 threes in the first quarter and he's building his offense that way. But he's generally and big picture not a great 3-point shooter, and they've just kind of had him standing in the corner for years. Well, Cat needs room to operate, and Anthony Edwards, and now that Cat's gone and Julius Randle got hurt, and you look at the month of February where there's just more space to fill, and Jaden is being asked, or just aggressively on his own, we need more. Like we need somebody to help fill up the box score and be productive. So since the Julius injury, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists on just under 50% from the field. Those are nearly identical to Kawhi Leonard's career statistics in those categories. And they both are elite perimeter defenders. And I'm saying Kawhi more like, before all the injuries and stuff, because there's a 9-year gap between those guys age-wise. But those are nearly identical statistical lines from Diet Kawhi Leonard and actual Kawhi Leonard. The stoic, emotionless personalities, there's just a lot of similarities, but you don't get to see it when Jaden McDaniels is just standing in the corner chucking 6 corner threes the whole game. So 30% to this version of Jaden McDaniels that we saw last night.
I believe it was the game on Friday night, the loss in Houston. He was like 1 for 7 from the floor from threes, and it was exactly that type of game. But the key to me with him is when he's got confidence and feels important, he is a really good player. And when that wanes, he's not. I thought the post game on FanDuel last night was great. So it was Ant, Nah, and Jaden, and the personalities of those 3 put together was fantastic. So they come back and they're about to talk to him. And Ant, of course, immediately, like he's talking to somebody off camera, drops a big F-bomb. And Nah, who's an incredibly, like you could tell that dude is smart. Like that's a smart guy. He's incredibly like focused, but he's fun. Yeah. And then Jaden, if you go back and watch, is actually like playing with his fingers. Like he's like, I don't know if his hand was bugging him or what.
It's like a nervous tick, I think.
But he's like playing with. So like that encapsulation to me though is a perfect one of those 3, because like if Nah leaves, they're going to miss him. I think beyond the floor. Like I think he has a very important role in the fact that he might not be a star, but he is absolutely a key contributor because he's smart. He is, I think, steady as well. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was great because, Ant in typical Ant fashion is dropping F-bombs. He gets super excited, which is great. And then there's Jaden, who looks like just a quiet assassin.
Dude, Leah B. Olson kind of scolded Ant. We're live right now. And Ant was like, oh. He kind of put his hands up like, oh, okay. I'm sorry, Leah.
Yeah, well, he was swearing off camera, but just in typical Ant, like he's going, he's like looking here and looking there, and he's like doing a million things.
He's pumping up his teammates. He's telling them like, and she even asked Ant, hey, she started with Ant, what'd you see? And he was like, talk to those guys. Those guys are out there closing a 16-point deficit.
Yep.
But on Jaden, we touched on this briefly with Doogie on the Scoop session on Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd. The 2 things that have kind of, because you watch him and he's super athletic, you know what he is as a defender. You see these flashes of his offensive game. He's got some handles. He can score all 3 levels. Not an elite 3-point shooter, but he can get hot from 3. But the 2 things that drove you nuts were he never rebounds, and his shot profile is way too skewed toward just standing out there and shooting 3-pointers. And in the last month, well, he's been much more aggressive with some of those other layers of offense, and he's grabbing double doubles on a regular basis. He has like 5 or 6 double doubles in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
So, it's funny. We had those Kevin Durant trade hypothetical reckless speculation sessions a few weeks ago. And I think all of us agreed would prefer to not trade Jaden McDaniels in a deal bringing back Kevin Durant, who's old. But this even, if there's a way to get Durant for something other than Jaden and Nas and you can kind of keep the band together, I think it'd be fun. I'm all for listening. I don't know what that looks like. But I think Jaden is showing you in the last 3 weeks, but probably since the first of the year even, that there is a ridiculous player in here. I mean, there is like a 20-point scorer per game in here, an efficient scorer, and there's a guy that can be just given a lot more of the responsibility to help carry this franchise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Rock knows how you feel about
Nice.
Pi.
That was a hell of a game. That was fun.
So much fun. Yeah, in fact, you're going to give us the box score from the last time they had a 25-point deficit overcome here. After we shout out North American Banking Company, helping to power Flagrant Howls this season. It's a Minnesota-based banking company, 6 locations in the Twin Cities, Maple Grove, Roseville, Shoreview, Hastings, Woodbury, 50th in France. And they're all about personal relationships and cutting-edge online tools. North American Banking Company will help give you peace of mind about where you bank. If your current banking relationship, maybe with one of the big national companies, has become a little too distant, a little too automated, maybe you should consider a local banker in North American Banking Company. And whether it's checking or savings or something bigger, like you're looking to finance a car or a home, North American Banking Company can help you. nabankco.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankco.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Also, shout out to Kieran's, too, just across the street from Target Center, Dex.
That's right. You can go to Kieran's, just steps away from Target Center, for great game day specials, some great pours as well. Pre-game, post-game, doesn't matter when you want to stop in. And hell, it doesn't have to be a Wolves game or when the Twins start up here too either. You can just go stop into Kieran's for a great belly-up spot at the bar. Go to Kieran's, just steps away from Target Center and Target Field in downtown Minneapolis.
Judd, take us in the Wayback Machine here to March 1st of 1996, the last time the Wolves overcame a 25-point deficit.
Yeah, so they were playing the Charlotte Hornets, but kids, it was the Charlotte Hornets version 1.0.
The real Charlotte Hornets. The
team
Larry
that
Johnson Charlotte Hornets.
Yes, exactly right. The team that's subsequently, because I think they didn't get a building, would move to New Orleans, keep the Hornets name, forcing the new Charlotte team to become the Bobcats, which was a stupid name. And then fortunately, sanity prevailed. New Orleans became the Pelicans, and we have 2.0 for the Charlotte Hornets. But let's go through the Wolves lineup that night, okay? So March 1st, 96. This was a Wolves team that entered the game with a 16-39 record at Target Center. The starters: Tom Gugliotta, who scored 18 points.
Googly.
Kevin Garnett, a rookie, I believe, that season, scored 16 points. J.R. Ryder scored 16 points. And now we get into the really good stuff. Andrew Lang, who came from Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, in the Christian Laettner trade, scored 13 points. And then you might recall the other starter at a guard, none other than Spud Webb.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had the Spud Webb era so Muggsy Bogues was not playing on this night for the Hornets. I don't know if he was hurt, but you would have had 2 of the shortest dudes in the history of the NBA playing point guard against each other if Muggsy had played.
Off the bench for the Wolves, Terry Porter, who scored 13. Derek Martin, a guard who bounced around and actually at that time had some really nice games occasionally for the Wolves, scored 16. And then the rest of the bench was Doug West, who played 15 in that game and scored 3 points. Marquise Bragg and Eric Riley.
Those guys must have just gotten in for like a minute of garbage time or something.
Eric Riley, I don't recall him. Bragg, I recall. I don't recall Riley, but yes, they played a minute apiece.
the Hornets, man. Yeah, so Steph Curry's dad, Del Curry, knocked down a few threes. Glenn Rice was a classic 90s player. How old was Robert Parrish, man? He was, that must have been like no, I guess he went to the Bulls the next season.
I was going to look at that.
He was 42 years old. Robert Parrish, man.
Yep, that's incredible.
Crazy.
I forgot that.
This wasn't a Flip year, was it? Was this pre-Flip, or is this
so
first year
Flip took over that season. Flip was, if I'm not mistaken, who got fired? Was it Sidney Lowe or Bill Blair got fired?
Bill Blair got fired by McHale.
And Flip took over the team. Yeah.
Well,
so Flip coached that game, I'm pretty sure.
Flip came in as so McHale got the job, and if I'm not mistaken, he hired his, at the time, old buddy Flip Saunders as the GM with Bill Blair still as coach. And it's like, okay, Bill Blair ain't going to survive this because it's clear what's happening here. And then, in season, Bill Blair got fired. Nobody could drop F-bombs like Bill Blair could. He was great. And I think by now Flip was coach. But so Charlotte, Glenn Rice, Grandmama, Larry Johnson, Matt Geiger, Del Curry, and Kenny Anderson, who I believe was a star at Georgia Tech, correct?
Kenny Anderson was a good, solid player in the 90s. Yeah, was he drafted by the Nets? Mm-hmm. He was a net on NBA Jam. I remember that being the case in the early 90s.
I think,
and then he eventually went to Boston in the 90s. So funny too that Scott Foster was one of the three officials in that 25-point comeback against.
That's awesome.
The Hornets, man. The Hornets jumped out to a 34-16 lead in the first quarter, and I think they must have had a 25-point lead in the first quarter.
Yeah, but like what makes last night so special is in that game, Charlotte gets off to a big lead, but the Wolves come back and then I think subsequently outscored the Hornets by a bunch in the third quarter. Yeah. Like last night, that's what was so improbable. They were down by 25 in the third quarter. They were dead.
Crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. So that was definitely one of the more fun regular season games in recent Wolves history last night. And shout out to Spud Webb. Spud Webb, man. All right, boys. That's a wrap here on Flagrant Howls. The sports dad, Judd, producer Dex, Phil Mackey. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.